Hello everybody and welcome to the Sin City that is Braintree. No, I'm just joking, it's just a little suburb on the outskirts of Bristol. Anyway, today I'm going to attempt on riding at least 3, which I did manage to do, but really I wanted to do 4 of the Volvo B7s Alexander ALX 400 that had returned to Bristol. That is right, with Eurocoaches winning a number of tendered contracts in the Bristol and West of England area, a number of Volvo B7s have been brought back into regular public service. Eurocoaches have quite a few ex-Dublin class Volvo B7 ALX 400s that are currently in operation, and they are in their livery as well, unlike most of their single-decker buses, which just wear a plain white livery. These used to be just primarily used on school services, however they then won the 5-2 and 5-4 services. The 5-2 has a quite complicated route, and I believe it has now been withdrawn, but it used to operate mostly with a minibus anyway. But the 5-4 used to operate with one of these Volvo B7s. Now, it hasn't been tracking for a couple of weeks since I filmed this video, so I'm not too sure what's going on with the 5-4, but most of the other contracted routes do tend to also see one of these Volvo B7s. So that just meant I had to come back to Bristol and see the return of the Volvo B7s. Anyway, the return was not quite as glamorous as what I thought, as my first bus was 20 minutes late. This was on the 40 service, which is a tendered service that the Eurocoaches had won and was previously operated by the Big Lemon. I will be taking this from Braintree all the way to the end at Avonmouth, but the service starts at Cribbs Causeway. am arriving into Avonmouth. I got off one stop before Fair Street at whatever this stop is called, I can't remember. It's the stop before Fair Street. Anyway, from here onwards I had to get a first class 41 service into the city centre to get on my next two Volvo B7s. Now I'd just like to have a small mention to this bus driver. I don't know who he was, but I hope everything went well for you, mate. If you're watching this video, I doubt you are, but if you are, I hope everything went well for you. Apparently from what he said, it was his first time doing the bus route, so I presumed that Eurocoaches on this day was short on drivers. As I was filming this on the 15th, I think, the 15th of April, and the service had been in operation since the 5th of April, so I'm not too sure what was going on there. Anyway, here I am at Avonmouth. Now, although the Volvo B7TL has only just made a major comeback into Bristol, the Volvo B9TLs have been in Bristol all their life and have never disappeared once. My bus on the way into Bristol city centre was on the 41 service and would then continue on to Warmley, and this was one of First West of England's many Volvo B9TL Right Eclipse Geminis. We also used to have a lot of Right Eclipse Gemini 2s in the west of England, but a lot of these, in fact I think pretty much all of them now, have been displaced and have been moved over to First Cymru in the Swansea area. Now I quite like these, and I do remember making a video quite a while ago saying how all of these were going to be gone, or at least most of them. Well, that clearly didn't happen, did it? So yeah, that was not great, but I do quite like the Volvo B9s, and it's better than seeing a load of Chinese crap, I mean Yutongs, going around Bristol. Anyway, I'm going to be taking this absolutely fabulous monster of a beast into Bristol city centre. Here I am travelling along the Portway, which is where a number of bus services travel on from the west of Bristol to get into Bristol city centre and outwards to the east. Here I am arriving into Bristol city centre after passing through the Hotwells area. Now I was planning on taking the 12 o'clock service, which is the 25 service, which is also operated by Eurocoaches and would be my second Volvo B7TL of the day. However, something quite interesting happened. I thought it was going to be this Volvo B7TL coming up right here, However, I think that bus had a few problems, so the Hoovery Volvo B7L, whichever one that was, I can't remember, had ETE on the end of its number plate, ended up doing the 12 o'clocker. Except he didn't let me on. He literally pulled up, opened his doors, then closed his doors, and then left. So I'm not really too sure what happened there, and although that did frustrate me, I managed to get on this Volvo B7L later on. As for now, I better end up waiting half an hour for the next one. Here is my next Volvo B7L, which was unfortunately, just like the previous one, a non-Hoover, arriving into Bristol city centre, stop C6, to take me up to Eastfield. Unfortunately, I didn't have time, especially if I wanted to get on the Hoovery Volvo B7 to go all the way to Fish Ponds and back, although one day I would like to do that once again, especially since ALX 400s are now on the route, and I believe they are getting displaced by more MMCs at some point, so I better be sharp with that, shouldn't I? Anyway, like I said just a minute ago, I'm going to be taking this to Eastfield at the Eastgate Centre. This bus didn't have a ticket machine, which would explain why it wasn't tracking and hasn't been tracking for a while, and that meant most people got a free ride. Although saying that, I would have gotten a free ride anyway. It's still nice to see free rides being given by Eurocoaches. Here I am skirting Broadmead, which is where most of the local bus services stop, and this is where the Haymarket bus services stop. This is where you can alight for Bristol bus station if your bus doesn't serve there. Anyway, here I am now heading down towards St Werburgh's, I think that's how you say it, and St Paul's. Here I am arriving at the Eastgate Centre, where I would cross the road and head back into Bristol city centre on the Hoovery Volvo B7l. Now I think the schedule must be quite tight on this route, as we left Bristol city centre bang on time at 12:30 and the driver was driving like nuts. But even then we still managed to get to the Eastgate Centre 3 or 4 minutes late, so I'm not too sure what was happening there. Anyway, here is the Hoovery Volvo B7l arriving at the Eastgate Centre to take me back into Bristol city centre, and I think most of you will agree I've saved the best Volvo till last. I am back in Bristol city centre. Thank you very much for watching. I would have liked to have gotten on a 4th ALX, but I don't think it was going anywhere. And there was no guarantee that there was going to be one on the 534 either. So yeah, I just decided to call it a day and get the train home. Thank you very much for watching, and at some stage I will try and get back up here before the ALXs go and get one last ride on the Bristol B7. Anyway, thank you very much for watching once again. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone.